Cheryl. I'm a student here at Miami-Dade College at North Campus. I'm going to do my oral presentation on the death penalty, which is also known as capital punishment. Death penalty is unconstitutional, applied fairly, a waste of taxpayers' dollars, also ineffective on deterring crime. My purpose here is to inform you that how executing a man violates the Bill of Rights. We as citizens should petition our government to abolish this practice. Here in the United States, there's over 13,000 people who have been legally executed since colonial times. The U.S. Supreme Court banned this practice back in 1972, stating that capital punishment by death was unconstitutional. But do you know 13% of the nation's death row inmates that are on death row are here in Florida? We are listed as number 2 in the nations with the most inmates that currently await death row, a total of 399 men and women. Do you also know that Florida is the only state that allows a jury to recommend death by a simple majority vote, 7 to 12? Here, we're going to cover these topics on how death penalty is an ultimate irreversible denial of human rights. It is basically premeditated killing by the state. Okay, so we're gonna start off with A, it's unconstitutional. B, it is applied unfairly. C, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And D, it doesn't deter men from committing crime. Let us start how unconstitutional that the death penalty is. Death penalty violates human rights according to the 8th Amendment. It states there that there shall be no cruel and unusual punishment. In some states, inmates have the option of requesting a last meal of their choice and their execution preference. How cruel and unusual that can be to choose your own method of dying. Here are some well-known examples of execution from our history. You have death by stoning, death by beheading, death by hanging, death by a firing squad, death by electrocution, death by gas chamber, and death by lethal injection. Capital punishment is applied unfairly. The death penalty is highly distributed among minorities. Those who kill whites 3 times more likely to receive a death penalty if the victim were white than those whose victims were black. The inmates that currently on the death row are generally blacks, Hispanic, mentally ill, who live below poverty levels. Vast majority of those executed were poor. Statistics reveal 90% couldn't afford an attorney. When they went to trial, they would often rely on court-appointed lawyers. In Florida, the criminal justice system has been cut. Florida legislature proposed a 50% cut in the funding of the already budget-strained public defender and state attorney office across the state. Florida legislation not only affects the public defender system, but it discourages private attorneys from registering for court appointment, which concludes insufficient funds means a compromised system. Let us look at the amount of tax dollars are spent enforcing the death penalty in Florida. Continuing education, the death penalty can cost taxpayers $51 million a year, above which it would cost to punish all first-degree murderers with life in prison without parole. Based on Florida current execution rate, the state spends approximately $24 million per execution, and the actual cost of prosecuting, convicting, and executing an individual in Florida has been estimated about the cost of $3.2 million. Those are some staggering amounts of dollars that can be put towards educating our youth, building youth recreational centers, adult daycare, assisting single parent and families with low income resources, rehabilitating alcoholics or ex-drug users, or even clean up our environment. Should the state of Florida do something more productive with our dollars than play the role of Grim Reaper? Yes. Lastly, death penalty is ineffective as a deterrent. Homicide rates in those states that enforce the death penalty are double than those without the death penalty. Let us compare other countries, like Canada. Canada no longer carry out this humane act. However, if a person is a habitual offender with a long history of violence, they are given an indefinite sentence, something the U.S. may want to consider doing. Canada's homicide rate has gradually dropped since executions were stopped. Therefore, my fellow citizens and residents of the state of Florida, we should petition our government to ban this practice of killing men who murder other men. It violates human rights, it is applied unfairly, and it's also hypocritical of our government to contradict its own laws. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars, and finally, it's ineffective on deterring crime. Thank you.